Hi, and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 344, and today's date is April 18th, 2014. And for those people celebrating Good Friday, happy Good Friday to you. And the title of this episode is the CIA pushing the war agenda in Ukraine? And I'm going to have to say yes to this, because what do we have? We have the CIA director fly into Ukraine, not really a big mention about it, but every time the CIA is getting involved in something, and there's other agencies along with the CIA, they are definitely coordinating some type of undercover or proxy war type of strike that they will use. We understand that Blackwater, there's about 1,300 soldiers there. We understand that Ukrainian armed forces will not fire on their own people. So they're really not using these people, and they're pushing them off to the borders and other areas where they really won't get involved. We also understand they're in the process of creating these new elite forces, which will spread out to all the different cities and regions in Ukraine to maintain control. And of course, we have the de-escalation agreement signed by the United States and Russia. And we don't see really de-escalation at this point. All armed forces and the military are still there. They are ready to pounce. They are not going to give this up, because we have to remember, the United States, EU, the NATO conglomerate here spent $5 billion to take over Ukraine with a coup. They wanted the entire country. They got the West. It seems now the South, the East, they're all breaking apart. They don't want to be a part of this coup d'etat, non-elected government at this point. And we can see right now they are not going to stop. And when I say they, I'm talking about the central bankers, U.S. government. They will not stop. They have already spent the money. They will not admit that they were wrong. They will not admit that this coup failed. They will push the agenda forward. And if they can't get what they want, they will start a war. They will do anything in their power to continually push this forward. And we can see that as soon as the de-escalation agreement was signed, they should have pulled back the troops. They didn't. They left them there. Of course, they're calling them inactive, but they are still there on the front lines. Who in their right mind at this point would give up the government buildings or say, okay, we signed the agreement and we're good to go? And also, the Donetsk protesters weren't even invited to the signing of the agreement, or they didn't even get their input in this. It was Russia, the U.S., and the puppet government. These are the people who formed this agreement. They left out the most important part, the people who were protesting. But right now, we know for a fact that the non-lethal aid is coming in, and just like in Syria, the backdoor channels, they are bringing in cash, they're bringing in weapons and personnel to handle this upcoming push for war. And before, let's get started with the economic collapse news, and we'll talk about this a little bit later in the report. We're going to head out to Japan right now. What we're seeing right there is that they raise the taxes out in Japan, and this is hurting the ability of the Japanese people to purchase. And right now, the consumer confidence has dropped in all 5 components in the survey, and with willingness to buy durable goods dropping the most, down by 2 to 30.8. And what we're seeing is right now it is really hitting the people hard in Japan. And again, we have to remember all these private Western central bank countries are completely soaked in debt. I mean, Japan is printing, the United States is printing, and this whole thing is completely falling apart, because as they continually print this money, all these countries continually have austerity. There are no jobs out there, so the people aren't bringing in extra income. Actually, the incomes of people are coming down. Meanwhile, food, energy, and other costs are going up. So this is a recipe for disaster, and it will completely implode on itself. And there was a Gallup poll out there, and it was, how do you think Obama is doing with the economy, and do you think we will have a recovery? And right now, more than half of Americans said they had virtually no confidence in President Barack Obama's ability to improve the nation's second economy. and I'm going to agree with that. They have been doing nothing for the American people. They are more worried about propping up the dollar. They're more worried about the central bankers. They are not worried about the people of the United States getting work, making ends meet. They don't care about that. What they do care about with the American people is taking away more rights, disarming them, and controlling them. Those are their main concerns of what they have been doing. And those survey respondents said they had little or no confidence in Obama making effective economic decisions. That was up 15% points over last year. So his approval rating is not getting better, and no one really believes that he can do anything, because pretty much everything that he said has been a lie, and he's never followed through on on anything that he said. And again, everything they were doing, you have to remember, the Federal Reserve, the central bankers, they are in it for themselves. So everything they do, every program they create, is not for the benefit of the people. It is the benefit for them. Obamacare, that's a good example. Not a benefit of the people. It is a cash tax grab. It was put into place to get everyone in there, to give the government and the insurance companies more money. This is why they had to put a penalty on people getting health insurance, because we just have to look at this and just use common sense. Something that good doesn't need a penalty to force people to take it. It makes no sense whatsoever, because when something is really good, people just run to it. No one forces people to go buy the iPhone. They buy the iPhone because it's a good phone and it works well. And this is why iPhone has done well. And I know people don't like Apple and all that stuff, but that's immaterial to the point here. Now, in my other reports, I reported that Congressman Issa, his office, was doing an investigation into Harry Reid, and it turns out he is absolutely not doing anything. And it seems like the reports that were coming out were falsified, they were not real, or someone got to him and they decided to drop the entire thing. Now, we have to remember, the NSA spies on everyone, and everyone, when I say that, isn't Congress is included. So they might have had something on him, they might have brought it up, and all of a sudden it was completely dropped, and there's no longer an investigation with Harry Reid. Now, of course, Harry Reid is out there saying it's not over, and I mentioned this before, and you've heard this all over the place. And Harry Reid is also saying that the supporters of Bunkerville rancher Clive Bundy are domestic terrorists because they defended him against a Bureau of Land Management cattle roundup with guns and put their children in harm's way. No, the people are out there peaceful. Yes, they have the right to have arms, but why was BLM out there with snipers, helicopters, M16s, all pointing at the people? Why were they pointing at children and women? Why would they be doing that? Just for fees and the tortoise? Again, the story doesn't make any sense. And of course, we know the real truth, that Harry Reid is behind this. He has multi-billion-dollar deals with a Chinese firm. President Obama already implemented an executive order helping solar panel companies create, and aid is being given to them. So we can see how this is all coming out, and it's all being portrayed like it's the people's fault, not the government. But you really have to look at this. Harry Reid has a financial role in this. He has a gain. Clive Bundy is protecting his family and his rights. So we can really see Harry Reid is using his power to have a government agency go in there with force, with weapons, helicopters, and whatnot, to force these people off of this land so he can have it to make financial gains. And he feels he's in the right, of course, because I am a senator. People need to listen to me. You are below me. You will not speak up or you'll be called a domestic terrorist. And this is very worrisome, because we have to remember the NDAA specifically says domestic terrorists can be arrested for more and put into jail for a year without due process. And look how easily the government officials can come out and call people domestic terrorists. And they just not called him a domestic terrorist, he called everyone on the ranch who was defending him a domestic terrorist. And these are the people of the United States, like you and me, everyday people who are defending their rights. And this, everyone should be worried about this, and this is why the NDAA was put into place, because this is how they're going to use it. They just showed us what they are going to do when this collapse happens. It will be very easy for them just to point fingers or have other people point fingers saying, oh, he's a domestic terrorist, he's talking out about the government. They'll come and they will get you, and we can see how this is being played into. Now, Cliven Bundy was out there saying, you know, the people supporting him against attempts by the Bureau of Land Management to take over land he is using to graze cattle are not domestic terrorists. They are not at all. We're definitely citizens riled up. And this is, I'm quoting Cliven Bundy. I don't know whether you could call us terrorists, he said. They're the most loving people here I have ever met in my life. So, again, these are everyday people coming out, supporting someone else and protecting the rights of the people. We have to remember, Harry Reid, who believes he has all this power, is there because we the people. If he no longer supports the people in what they believe above his financial ambitions, he needs to step down. And of course we see it right now that he doesn't believe the people are right. He is not for the people. He is for his financial ambitions. And this is what we're seeing right now. And we also understand that the government and other people are coming after veterans the same way. They are calling them domestic terrorist extremists, and there was a New York Times article out there. Kathleen Belew wrote this article, and what it said is veterans in general, and best of all, how those of us who have gone to war and come home with brain injuries have the potential to become racist terrorists. The author implies that the soldiers and veterans are the real threat that Americans must be wary of, and her warning is clear that these people have to be watched because they are a threat to the United States, and they can become domestic terrorists. And you can see how they are completely going after the veterans at this point, and we have to wonder why. And the reason why is because these people have been trained in military tactics. So they understand how to use weapons. They know the tactics that the military uses. They are the people that fight and have the ability to fight back against the government. And they're very worried about this, and they need to get rid of these people because these people pose a threat to their power, and this is what they're doing right now. Now, I've said this many times where DHS and the government is going to use people to tell on people. And here is the first phase of how they're trying to convince people to even tell on your children if you believe they are having terrorist tendencies. And right now, a Harvard University John F. Kennedy School of Government on Tuesday evening, White House Homeland, a speech was delivered in Harvard University John F. Kennedy School of Government on Tuesday evening. White House Homeland Security and Counterterrorism Advisor Lisa Monaco said, it could help prevent terrorism if parents watched for sudden personality changes in their children at home. President Obama has been laser focused on making sure we use all the elements of our national power to protect Americans, including developing the first government-wide strategy to prevent violent extremism in the United States, said Monaco. Local communities are the most powerful assets we have in the struggle against violence and violent extremism. Parents might see sudden personality changes in their children at home, becoming confrontational. Religious leaders might notice unexpected clashes over ideological differences. Teachers might hear a student expressing an interest in traveling to a conflict zone overseas, or friends might notice a new interest in watching or sharing violent material. Really, so this makes someone a terrorist if they like to go across the ocean and maybe visit Ukraine, or they like to go across the ocean and visit any one of the other countries into Africa or anything like that. Or if your child is showing um, expressing differences in religious belief. This is absolutely ridiculous. What they are doing is they are brainwashing the American people to tell on each other, and they're trying to show that even if it's your child, you need to tell the authorities and we will help you. No, they will not help you. They will take the whole family in, and that will be that. They are trying to snuff out who is in these categories. This is what they're trying to do. This is completely the same strategy the Nazis used, and with the brown shirts and the SS. And here we are today. DHS is already starting their propaganda. Tell on other people, even if it is your child. And this is going to spread across the country, and all those people who are sleeping and not awake are going to use this. And this is a very big problem, because we can see already most of the people who are looking at the Bundy Ranch who know nothing about it, and I've been speaking to people, and they really think those people are in the wrong, that the government has the right to come in and force him off the land with force if they had to. And I'm sitting here going, what? This is just unbelievable to me. And again, everyone always thinks the government is on their side. The government is not on your side. They are on the side of themselves. They are not on the side of the people. And you can see every program that they have created, it is not on the side of the people. Now, Japan is going to deploy troops near the disputed islands. Japan says it will deploy about 100 soldiers and radar equipment to its westernmost outpost located on a tropical island off Taiwan amid escalating unrest in the East China Sea. The new outpost will be just 150 kilometers or 93 miles from the disputed chain of islands claimed by China but controlled by Japan in the East China Sea. So again, here we are pushing the agenda forward, and this is being built up between Japan and China, United States and Russia, United States, Syria, with the rebels, with the United States behind it, and Iran. So we can, and North Korea, I don't want to forget them. So we can see all the players here. Everyone has their little conflicts going on, and all military assets and military personnel are all positioned to get ready for this next war, and this war is definitely coming. Now, the pro-Russian, or the people who want to be completely independent, I don't know why they're calling them pro-Russian, I guess to keep that word Russian in everyone's mind, but the people of Ukraine who want to be independent of the coup d'etat government said that they are not going to leave the government buildings. We were not included in the talks with this de-escalation agreement. We have the right to ask for a referendum. We don't believe we need to remove ourselves from the government building. We do not want to be part of this Kiev government at this time. And again, we have to understand the tanks did not roll back. The military squads have not rolled back. Nothing has changed. But right now, the CIA is working on a proxy war against Russia in Ukraine. And this is why CIA boss John Brennan was sent into Kiev at this time. I mean, John Brennan went to Kiev on Sunday, and it was not to talk about intelligence sharing, as the establishment media, as the corporate media has said. It had nothing to do with that whatsoever. Actually, they didn't even admit to it until questions were being asked. Did the CIA director go to Kiev? And finally, they had to say, yes, he did. Brennan went to Ukraine to work on logistics for the next phase of the crisis, a proxy war against Russia, similar to the successful one in Afghanistan that defeated the Soviet Union. The Pentagon has officially announced it will provide the regime with non-lethal aid. The Obama administration is playing the same game in Syria, while behind the scenes encouraging Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar to send boatloads of cash, arms, and most importantly, fanatical al-Qaeda and al-Nusra mercenaries willing to slaughter unarmed civilians and even Christian priests. The pull of getting involved in a proxy war is intoxicatingly strong for an obvious reason. Proxies do all the work. Just provide surrogates, cash, guns, and voila, the United States has nothing to do with it. They're paying, bringing in other people to do their dirty work. Proxy wars are usually waged secretly and thus represent U.S. foreign policy that the American people, and indeed most of the U.S. government itself, has no say in. They usually involve supporting unscrupulous groups of people that often end up committing serious crimes, although it's by proxy, so U.S. officials typically wiggle out of any responsibility. We see the same thing happening in Syria. They have a proxy group, paid mercenaries, rebels in there. They're loading them up with weapons, and the United States says, oh, we have nothing. And actually, years before this, the United States said, we have nothing to do with this. This is a grassroots uprising. We had nothing to do with it. Same thing's happening in Ukraine right now. They have everyone convinced that this non-lethal aid's coming in, and through the back door and through other areas, they are completely orchestrating a proxy war with paid mercenaries and other groups and other weapons being piled into Ukraine at this time. And this is why this de-escalation agreement is absolutely going nowhere fast. And right now on the Ukrainian borders, they are allowing the military to fire upon people if they need to do it. And you have to remember, they also blocked men coming in from the ages of 16 to 60, and right now they're all armed on the borders, ready to fire if they need to. And as of right now, more military from Ukraine are defecting over to the Russian or the people of Donetsk side. About 50 Ukrainian soldiers joined the Federalists of Slavyansk, and right now we can see more and more Ukrainian military are moving over. And this is why in my past reports I said they can't depend on Ukraine military, because they understand they will not fight against their own people, and this is why they were pushing them off into other directions and creating these forces. And of course these forces, we know what they are. These are the forces that they're bringing in, the paid mercenaries, Blackwater or other groups, that they're giving them weapons, and they will have no problem coming down on the people really hard. Now, Donetsk is saying that they're going to have a referendum come May 11th to secede from Ukraine. We're going to have to see how that happens. And I believe that the CIA, U.S. Government, central bankers will need to do something before this May 11th date. So we're going to have to watch this very closely from now until May 11th, because they do not want Donetsk to secede or claim independence from Kiev and Ukraine at this time. And they are definitely going to try to stop them one way or another. Now again, they could be using a false flag. They could use anything possible to say, this is why we had to restart the war. Of course, they'll blame it on the other side for starting it, because they'll say they fired. There could be agent provocateurs. There could be anything going on at this point. Now, Obama is out there, and he's, has a chip on his shoulder, and he's out there saying in a high-profile interview today, President Obama downplayed the military risks of plans to deploy U.S. ground troops in Eastern Europe, saying Russia wouldn't dare confront the U.S. military and knows the U.S. troops are significantly superior. We need to be very careful, not we, but the United States, the central bankers, United States government need to be really careful in what they're saying right now, because for them to sit and say we're superior to Russia, we both have nuclear weapons at this time. And again, Russia has very good technology. They are a nuclear-based country. They also have weapons that are far superior than the United States at this time. And again, for President Obama to come out and say these things kind of worries me, because these central bankers, U.S. government, truly believe that they will win this war and they will restart the system the way they want it. And you can just tell by this statement that they are ready to go. Now, the Pentagon is going to block a Russian plane from flying over the United States. You have to understand, Russia and the United States signed an Open Skies Treaty, and this is back a couple years ago, where each country is allowed to fly over each country freely with their spy planes, take a look at what's going on, and both sides signed it. Many countries have signed this, and right now, Washington's national security leaders reportedly want to bar a new high-tech Russian plane from conducting treaty verification flights over U.S. nuclear arms. Under the Open Sky Treaty, which the United States and Russia have both ratified, 34 signatory nations agreed to allow overflights over their territory by other member states. Planes outfitted with special sensors and cameras gather information on a range of military resources, including troop movements, combat vehicles, and nuclear armed locations. An unidentified U.S. official, it's always an unidentified U.S. official, said the concerns about the Russian aircraft are not tied to the recent uptick in tensions with Moscow over its actions in Ukraine. And of course they're not. This is just a coincidence that we don't want them to fly over over the United States. Come on. They don't want them in the United States right now because they're getting ready to start this war. This is why they don't want them flying over the United States. Now, we have to remember, we can't forget about Syria. They've been using the propaganda all along. They just had the other propaganda come out with Syria that Assad, again, has used chemical weapons. This is to keep us fresh in our minds. Now everything has gone kind of silent with the corporate media and everything with Syria. And this is disturbing right now because every time the fanfare dies down, something major happens out of nowhere. And right now what we're seeing is all eyes are on Ukraine. All eyes are on Ukraine of what is going on. And this would be the perfect opportunity for some type of false flag event to say, the Syrian Electronic Army has been cyber attacking. They have the ability to cyber attack. They are a huge threat. Assad has been gassing his people again, which is false, and it's a false flag right now to keep it fresh in everyone's mind. We also, the little tidbits of Assad having hidden chemical and biological weapons. Vials have been missing, 2,300 vials of the SARS virus. I mean, there's so many things out there right now, and it's gone very quiet with Syria. There was video footage of them having American-made weapons. They've been building up the armed forces in Syria, sending them into Syria, and it seems like this down time period right now where there's not much going on there, this is the part we have to worry about, because now all of a sudden everyone was looking at Ukraine, and all of a sudden we'll see Syria hit the United States. Of course, it will be a false flag event, and it's completely fake and phony because it was delivered by the United States government or some other agency that they hired to do so, and it will hit the United States and bring our economy to its knees just like they want, because they continually try to convince us that we're in a recovery. And if we look at this, right now Congress is urging to renew the Terrorism Risk Insurance Act. The Terrorism Risk Insurance Act is set to expire at the end of 2014. And members of Congress are urging its reinstatement before it's too late. The bill was enacted in 2002 in response to 9/11 and requires private insurers to offer terrorism coverage to individuals with government assistance should the total payout from an event exceed $100 million. And right now, they want to make sure that this is going to be renewed. It is expected that lawmakers will consider renewal after the April break and propose a reform bill within the first weeks of May to get this enacted again. So they want to make sure that the terrorism risk insurance is there right before the event occurs, because this doesn't come up until the end of 2014, but they want to have it done by May. This is an indicator that they are definitely planning something. And of course, those things that are going to be hit, they want to make sure that they are covered with this insurance, so they are paid back. For instance, if they hit a building or they hit an area that, just so happens to be with government those people that have the terrorism insurance to the individuals and their place got hit, almost like 9/11 when they had this big asbestos problem in the building and it was going to cost billions of dollars to take all that out, and it was much easier just to down the building. I mean, that is one of the stories that is out there. There could be many other places like this where they would get the insurance money if a terrorist attack came about. And it seems very odd that they are pushing this agenda right now to get this done by May. Listen, everyone, we all know that something is about to happen. We realize this, and we have to remember that you need to be prepared. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.